Awesome. So yeah, we wanted to spend a few minutes talking about sold schools. If you have social media, you might have seen some posts about sold. But really, this is kind of like our heart and DNA, and we just wanted to give a few words about what sold is about. And but Matt, you've been your heart is like cultivating this kind of culture as well. So yeah. I asked him to do a Facebook Live with me together here, so we could just kind of like chop it up why we do what we do, why we cultivate community the way we do, discipleship, hearing God's voice, just a few elements like this. So yeah, why don't you share, man?
Yeah, so our heart was we feel like the past 2 or 3 years the Lord's kind of birthed a new wineskin, and our heart is and the question really for us was, how do you have discipleship in the context of existing communities? How can you foster a new wineskin so that people aren't leaving to go to Bible schools in different places, but instead local people who have the vision for discipleship can begin to form those things in their local community? Yeah. And so the idea is to begin to form kind of a program, but breathe in with the Holy Spirit, where young people or people can host these discipleship schools in their local communities all around the world in different cities. And so what you guys have been doing in Orlando is, for 3 months in the fall, having a guy's house. Now this fall you're going to have 2 girls' houses as well, 2 guys' houses, 2 girls' houses. But for 3 months, just hosting brotherhood and sisterhood. And instead of relying on the classroom environment for people to come into a deeper revelation of Jesus, allowing community to be that, to hold that together. So discipleship, one of the things that you said is discipleship, it doesn't happen in classrooms. It happens in the context of community, or I think you said sons and daughters are not birthed in classrooms; they're birthed in the context of family. Yeah. So hosting families, and then again beginning to make this thing replicable, where it's not just in Orlando, but it's in different communities all throughout the U.S. As people gain vision for this. Yeah. Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And the goal is that like people would develop their own communities and get a heart for like, all right, like, we're called to be a kingdom family. We're called to be a kingdom community that fosters a certain expression locally that we're committed to birthing together. But then now others are coming and receiving from the fruit of that, because each one of us, if you're into wine, I'm not into wine, but like not that way. But like if you know anything about wines, what I've heard about wines is that like there's people that specialize in wine tasting, all this stuff, and they could tell you the place, the location, the time, the year that wine was made. And so like that speaks of like what God produces in our own hearts, in our own lives, but then in the community, in the vineyard of the Lord, He's producing a certain taste and expression that is cultivated in time and commitment and covenant and rooted down in seasons with community and with people that God's placed you to do life with. And so we're believing that God would multiply even these schools. I mean, we're having a handful of four schools launching this fall, but we're believing for many other schools to be launched as people take ownership in their own communities to cultivate the expression of Jesus locally and give value to the community. Because I'm telling you, there's businessmen, men of God that sit in churches, and they're not mentoring a generation. We need businessmen to pour into the next generation and disciple them in business. We need so many different you name it. Like expressions, but then it's like giving value to those that are doing the thing and that are bearing fruit to disciple the next generation up into it.
Yeah, and so when we say 4 schools, what we're saying is 4 different houses where they're discipleship houses in a community. And like you're saying, where so often there's this star-centered search for, hey, what teachers are coming to your discipleship school or whatever, but recognizing that there are mature men and women in almost every community who can talk on the Father's heart, who can talk on identity in Christ, who can talk on how to hear God's voice. And instead of paying to have these superstars fly in, instead honoring what God has raised up in the body, at real relational networks that the Lord then begins to add to and strengthen, and in a place of intimacy begins to breathe out answers for communities, for cities, right? From like going back to the wine thing, that it's unique answers breathed out from the secret place, from the relational networks that are there, from the unique expression that He's birthed to begin to reach communities and take over communities. And so the idea is to begin to make what you guys have birthed there replicable, which is like a very present-centered discipleship house that honors the relational network that that it's birthed in a way. Yeah.
And then and it's very fluid, it's very relational, it's very intimate, and we know that no school is going to run the same because God's doing something in individuals, and you have to foster to the children that you're raising, right? You don't raise each child the same. You understand how God's designed them and how God's knit them in the womb, so to speak, to now begin to speak life and truth into them to raise them up, but then giving them space to be raised up. A lot of times we have this agenda. Well, you're gonna be this, or I see this, but like actually no, teaching them to hear the voice of the Lord, and then coming back, undergirding what God is speaking to their lives. You know, that's our role as people that are passionate about discipleship, as raising up a generation. Ultimately, we know the main thing is teaching them to hear God, right?
Yeah,
that's what we're super strong on.
Friendship, intimacy.
Intimacy, right? Fellowship with the Spirit, knowing God, and then we as people that provide that space. Okay, step out and do it. God said this, do it. You know, and that's what we're seeing.
And even going to so there are a lot of schools they'll teach 1 week on the prophetic, for example, and you'll go to a classroom, you'll learn, you'll do some activations. But there's something that happens when you just come into a community that hosts this for 3 months, that hosts hearing God's voice, and people begin to come up so much quicker in it. Plus, we all know, like, we're learning to hear His voice. When you're learning a foreign language, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. So in the context of community, having those mistakes made, having older brothers, older sisters in the faith there to call up, to correct in different ways, but in the context of love.
Right.
And so it's this heart to instead of teaching things in a classroom, to simply have a community that hosts them, and in that place, people they become acculturated to the culture of the kingdom. And so it's beginning to create a wineskin that can do that. And where if you're in Toronto, if you're in South Africa, if you're in India, then you can begin to host these places, right? That's the end goal. So I was even reading a book about YWAM, Lauren Cunningham, earlier this year, and his heart. To have these bases where fathers and mothers would be present to father and mother a generation. That was back in the 70s, and it's a very similar idea, but instead of bases, really having the grounding in a house, and in a smaller house setting where these families can really take root, where it's an individualized work of the Holy Spirit. That's buttressed or undergirded by mothers and fathers, not seeking to control, but seeking to empower, seeking to connect to the Holy Spirit, right? And then to bless what He's affirming, right? And so that's the heart of these things, and beginning to make that replicable, so that people don't have to travel to different schools to take that in, but instead local brothers and sisters, as they get vision for it, can host it 3 months a year as a community, and can begin to disciple.
Yeah, absolutely. And we keep each school very small and intimate, 6 to 8, up to 10 maybe. I don't know. We'll see how the Lord works things out. But we keep it small intentionally so that there's intimacy formed, so that there's relationship, because it's about walking together. It's about saying yes to one another, committed. And that's the beautiful thing about commitment, is that you say yes, and whatever comes, you continue to say yes and walk people through it into freedom, into breakthrough, into liberty. So that's our heart, to see that. It's very possible. A lot of Bible schools have 70, 80 students coming, so they come and they're there for 6 hours a day in a classroom setting, but they go back and there's not a lot of polishing that happens, and it's hey, each of us is a trophy of His grace, and there's a lot of polishing that happens with trophies. So where that happens in the context of family, and seeing that is significant. Seeing the one is significant. That's so good. If you guys have any questions, just give us a comment below. Maybe we could answer a few questions. But this fall, September 9th, we start. Registration is open. Go out to the website, I can't believe I said www. That's so funny. No one says that anymore. But go to sold.school or soldschools.com and check out the website. send the link to somebody, send this video to somebody that you know needs empowerment, that you know needs freedom, that you know needs life, that's hungry. We believe that hunger is the main catalyst for growth. If you're not hungry for God, first of all, if you're not hungry for God, get around some people that are, and you'll get hungry real quick. Get around some people that are going after the Lord, and it will infect you in a holy way, and you'll begin to want God. But hunger is the main catalyst that takes us deeper, that allows us to eat of God. So one thing we really is a requirement for this school is hunger for Jesus, because that's what will take you further. And then but yeah, send this link to a hungry heart that just tag one person below, and we're just gonna see God disciple a generation one by one, family to family, community by community, as we commit to doing life together and discipling one another. So if you want to know more about some discipleship perspectives that we have, you're welcome to check out Jesus Manifesto. I just actually posted a video on discipleship yesterday. So if you check out Jesus Manifesto on YouTube and the latest videos on discipleship, just really sharing the heart, more of the heart on discipleship. But if you guys have any questions, just comment below. We'll answer them about the schools. But yeah, that's pretty much the heart of the school. And Matt always comes down as a teacher and just pours into the students as well. Just the Father's heart and on discipleship. It's so powerful. But you've been doing that for years here in Jacksonville. So that's amazing. Guys, yeah, thank you guys for watching Matt's Facebook channel. And yeah, may the Lord bless you. And remember, you are called to disciple somebody. Wherever you are, you're called to disciple somebody. So find someone that is hungry and willing and humble, and invite them to do life with you. And we'll change a generation through that. God bless you guys.
Amen. God bless you guys.
Peace.